before I started at Total Balance Fitness, my wife had already started about 3 months before me. And so I'd be lying in bed when she'd get up and go to her session. And progressively I felt more and more guilty that I was just, because I'd always intermittently done something with my fitness, like, I did running for a while, did swimming at lunchtimes at work, but it was always, short term. But I like the sound of what my wife Olive was telling me, and it sounded like it had the sort of setup that would encourage me to stick at it, and that's proved to be the case. Yes, my wife pointed out to me that when we were getting dressed in the morning, I was sitting down a lot. She said, you can get dressed standing up. And I realised that was ageing. It's one of those things that sneaks up on you. And I had little niggles, like not long before I started here, I was almost having a frozen shoulder. Luckily, I went to see a physio in time, and she got me through that. So when I started here, I was still kind of my shoulder was still recovering. So I had to be a bit careful about, what I did and how, how strenuous I went at it. But the trainers here understood that, and never asked me to do things that weren't in keeping with my recovery. And so it wasn't long before my shoulder freed up and I was able to do anything that was asked of me. Like I said before, my doubt before I started would have been around whether I could stick at it, because we did go to, many years ago, Olive and I went to a gym not too far away from us. I won't say the name, but we just had one session with them and I pulled a muscle in that very first session. And I thought, will these young trainers really understand what it's like to be an older person, and that yes, we want to get fit, and yes, we want to push the envelope a little bit and get a bit stronger and all those sorts of things, but we don't want to do things to the point where we injure ourselves, because as you get older, injury is more likely than it is when you're younger, and recovery takes a bit longer. So perhaps I had some concerns around injury, some concerns around whether we could afford it, but it wasn't long at all before I came to see or regard the expense as a very good investment, because I saw the benefits straight away, benefits that I hadn't imagined beforehand. And for me, it's about quality of life. As you get older, the statistics say you lose muscle mass, you lose your balance, sense of balance. So you actually need to, if you want to arrest that, stop that from happening, you need to actually work at it a lot harder than you would in your 20s and 30s. Or even not so much harder, but it would be much more consistent and conscious that that's required. Your quality of life is now something that you have to maintain. Yeah, the things that are easier now is just a general energy level. I might have been tempted to put things off. I'll do that later. Procrastination is very good at finding reasons not to do stuff. And now I'm much more likely that if there's something that needs doing, I just do it. I have every confidence that, I'll have the energy and the strength and all those sorts of things. Like anything that involved bending down or kneeling down, I would avoid, because I knew I'd either get, some aches and pains in my back or knees or whatever. So I put those jobs off, and now, Now, if I know something needs doing, I'm much more likely to do it straight away. And that adds to the quality of life because, you know, then I can enjoy lying around and doing nothing much more when, you know, I've earned it. A consistency of energy, you know, and well-being. My health is better. I don't tend to get coughs and colds anymore. I'm more relaxed. So that my stress levels have, you know, that I had when I was working, they've pretty much gone. Just feeling better and feeling that everything's possible and that, you know, I'm set up well to go through the rest of my life, you know, with a sense of well-being. I'd say the difference that it's made is one of attitude. I'm much more ready to enjoy stuff, to participate, and to benefit from that participation. So life is fuller, I'm getting more done, and I'm not as tired doing it. In fact, I'm usually, most of the time, feeling fairly energised. Well, as a setup, the setup of the studio is really good. I like the fact that it caters for people over 50. And that sounds a bit elitist, but you know, that gives you confidence that your circumstances will be well understood. And the staff are great. The staff just make sure you're okay. They'll adjust things if you are having, you know, some health problem or a niggle. You know, you might have a sore shoulder or something like that, and things can be adjusted. It's a place I'm happy to come to, and you feel looked after and understood, and I think that's really important. I was worried initially that I wouldn't stick at it, but now I look forward to it. I like the fact that it's scheduled, you know, that our schedule is that we're here Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, and it's like that every week, and you know, so that becomes something that we don't put off because it's just part of what we do, and everything else is, you know, has to work around our Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and that's good for us because that means if the schedule's changing all the time, you're more likely to put it off. I know it's more than 2.5 years, but I don't know when I started, so something like that. I mean, that's one thing. Another thing I want to say, I like the fact that our program changes every 6 weeks and it's tailored for us, because that gives you the feeling that you're not just a commodity. Everything that you're being asked to do, the programs, the exercises that you're being given, are specifically for where you're at in your fitness journey. And so that way you don't feel like just a commodity, that you're actually, everything's being tailored for your needs, which is great. And I think that also encourages somebody to stick with it, because, you know, it's important to have something that is meeting not just your needs, but exactly what your needs are. Just do it, because you will find from doing it the benefits come fairly readily, that you'll be able to discuss any doubts or issues that are putting you off with the staff. They will take into consideration any issue you may have and try and work around that and come up with a program that works for you.